Lawyer John Eastman, one of the kookier figures in this entire protracted effort to overturn the 2020 election, is now implicated with these new messages that have just been revealed, where he apparently claimed in an email after Election Day 2020 that there's a heated fight among Supreme Court justices over whether to hear arguments about the president's efforts to overturn the result of the election. So he apparently was saying there is the possibility that the Supreme Court could take this up and in theory choose, as they did a couple of decades ago, effectively who becomes president. He said in one of those messages, so the odds are not based on the legal merits, but an assessment of the justices' spines. And I understand that there is a heated fight underway. So what he's saying is there is disagreement about this, but what is going to influence it isn't so much the legal merit. It's a rare moment of lucidity for John Eastman, knowing that there is no merit to their claims, but how scared they are about what it could mean if they don't take it up. And that is important because he is involved in a political movement that worked to create the chaos of January 6th. If they have a paper trail saying, we think we can get this picked up, but we need there to be utter chaos for it to work, then I think when you try to claim that you didn't intend for anything bad to happen on January 6th, that becomes a little bit harder to make that seem reasonable. What do you think, Dave?
I'll take a step further. I guarantee if in fact there were these heated discussions, and I'm not necessarily sure, I think there's also a possibility that Eastman was just saying this to try to rile up Donald Trump and make the case for why they should go forward with Eastman memo. But taking him at his word, if there was some disagreement, you know for sure that Clarence Thomas was part of that disagreement because he wanted to do whatever Trump was wanting to do with the election. And he, of course, has his wife, Ginni Thomas, who's actually talking about alternate electors. So the whole thing, it just kind of, I'm speechless by it all. And think about it this way, John. People were so angry at Mike Pence on January the 6th. Can you imagine talking about the pressure on the Supreme Court justices if suddenly they had taken this case? And there was this mob that was willing to, say, hang Mike, but what would they do to the Supreme Court justices who wanted to make a decision based on the rule of law?
Yeah, I'm glad that you pointed out that John Eastman can't necessarily be trusted. He might well have said this. That doesn't mean that it's true. That is totally true. There's also another potential failure point in this argument, and that gets into how he would, in theory, know. I mean, you pointed out Ginni Thomas is involved in this. I'm gonna jump ahead to graphic 10. People are wondering, well, if there was the issues or if he thought that there was the issues, how would he know about that? Now, he had been a clerk for Justice Clarence Thomas, Eastman had. So in theory, he could be communicating directly with Clarence Thomas. The issue with that is that Clarence Thomas is a Supreme Court justice. They're not political people, partisan people. They are like pure fonts of judicial wisdom. They would never get involved in any of this. But maybe Ginni Thomas would, because Ginni Thomas apparently also emailed John Eastman ahead of January 6th. And that's where the other failure point comes. Eastman could be lying, or he could have been told by Ginni Thomas that there's this fight going on. And that could have been wishful thinking on the part of a woman who apparently believes literally every conspiracy theory that's presented to her. So she could have told John Eastman something. He could believe her, but it could not be true. So there's a lot that we don't necessarily know. What we do know is that the January 6th committee announced this morning that they will be seeking Ginni Thomas to testify, saying, we think it's time that we at some point invite her to come talk to the committee. Seems overdue. And Jamie Raskin said this morning, new evidence is breaking every single day now. Suddenly, a lot of people want to tell the truth. So I don't know, there's a lot that we don't know. I would have loved, David, for us to find out a bit more of this before the January 6th committee hearing presentations. But I don't know, maybe this is starting to shake the tree and stuff is falling out.
No, certainly. I think that's certainly the case. That a lot of people are now in sort of CYA mode, trying to protect their own reputations. The thing about Ginni Thomas is that if she in fact was telling John Eastman, if that's true, that there's this bitter divide of the Supreme Court, well then Ginni Thomas is undermining the explanation she's giving now, the defense she's been offering that, my husband and I, we never talk about work. We always sort of kept it separate. Well, clearly, that's a lie. I never believed that. And now we simply have John Eastman essentially confirm that Ginni Thomas was probably talking to other people and her husband about her efforts and his efforts to try to keep Donald Trump as president.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.